Hello, I'm Imara Jones reporting with FSTV here at the Netroots Nation gathering in Philadelphia this year, where this group of activists, online and digital, are figuring out ways to make sure that people turn out to vote, are engaged, and that progressives win the day in 2020. And so that's why we are thrilled to talk to Aimee Allison, because there is no more important group for progressives than women of color. This has been Aimee's cause, and now the cause is realized in terms of everyone realizing what you've known, your secret, for all along. And so we just thank you for taking the time to talk to us and give us some of your insights.
My pleasure. And it's been a year.
It has been a year.
It's been a year.
A year.
And when I say that, I mean in 2016, women of color wasn't even a consideration. And now you have presidential candidates releasing policy platforms for women of color.
That's right.
Who are vying for our vote. That is progress, because we are going to be shaping the agenda, the progressive agenda.
Well, one of the things that is always happening is that progressives are trying to figure out how to leverage the power of marginalized people in a way that is effective electorally. And one of the things that you've done over the last year at the last Netroots conference was to launch a platform to do that for women of color. So I'm wondering, what do you think is the thing that progressives need to do to replicate in many ways what you've done across the board? What's the thing that's not being done? Why do we have just She the People? And why did it take us so long to do She the People?
Yeah, well, we're starting now, and part of the reason that it took this long was a number of factors. The rise of intersectional politics that demands gender, racial, and economic justice all in the same thing.
That's exactly right.
The rise of the power of identity.
That's exactly right.
You know what? You're an immigrant, you're born here, or you're black, or you're Asian American, or you know what I mean? All the different identities and the ways that we slice them gives us power and influence, as opposed to being something that, like the right wing has always said, is identity politics, that is something that should be avoided. Our identity is our power. And it's also a moment where there's a recognition, particularly in the wake of Clinton's stunning loss in 2016, that the success of our movement and our politics depends on building a multiracial coalition, and that we need people who speak the language of the new American majority, that have a heart for people that are different from them, that embrace a politics that serves those who have not been served and have been marginalized. It means that politics is appearing differently in 2019, and that the politics that will win the day next year, in the presidential year, is going to have all those elements. So in the last year since we've talked, all of those things, kind of like all those things came together to leave space for women of color to say, it's our day. And let me tell you, like I have said over and over, there's no path to victory to the White House in 2020, or to the victory in the Senate, without the enthusiastic support of women of color as voters and as organizers. And to position ourselves as the leaders of this coalition is the winning strategy.
Right, and nothing builds momentum like success, right? And so there were a couple of things that happened in quick succession. There was Doug Jones, right, and the role that black women played in his election.
2017.
That's right, in 2017. And then last year, the way in which black women candidates and women of color candidates did across the board, some of whom in districts that were majority white, showed the importance of women of color. And so I think that all of that's worked together. One of the things that I always tell people all the time when they talk about intersectional identity politics, particularly the Democratic old guard, is that I say all politics is identity politics. You just think that your identity is not, doesn't have a unique speciality to it, but all politics is identity politics. That's how we get into it.
That's right.
In terms of one of the breakthrough events, political events of the year, was undoubtedly the People gathering in San Francisco. It changed the terrain for several candidates, right?
I now thought you were going to say the She the People presidential forum in Houston.
What did I say?
You said San Francisco, which was our launch, and that was the kind of our But the Texas Southern University
right.
with 8 candidates in front of 2,000 women of color, I was like, that had never been done.
Right,
You know, that had never been done before.
So I merged the two in my mind. So let me separate
them. It's been a year, because we started out the conversation talking about it had been a year.
So let me separate them. The She the People presidential gathering in Houston at Texas Southern was a watershed. It is probably the watershed moment of the year, alongside the debates, where it literally changed the terrain for several candidates. And I think that many of them will look that there's a before that and after that for their own candidacies. I'm wondering for you, sitting there in the audience, hearing their reaction, experiencing the candidates, what surprised you about that particular gathering, and what do you think are the next steps in making sure that the people that you activated there stay engaged with those candidates?
Yeah. Well, I should just first say there were 2,000 women from 26 states, most of the states in the South and Southwest that Trump had won. And most were activists and leaders in their own right all over the country. Very powerful room of women. Yeah. But what's more, we had 150 credentialed members of the media. The entire nation's political press was there. MSNBC came on as a partner, so millions of people experienced the conversation, and we brought frontline organizers from some of those states to ask questions directly on stage to the candidates, and that made a difference. It was the first time that we could introduce really critical issues that had been not addressed by presidential candidates or by national politics really ever. Black maternal health, one of the frontline organizers in hospitals that are trying to address the crisis of black moms dying in childbirth at 3 times the rate of white moms, she asked the question to Elizabeth Warren. She said, you know, here's this tragedy, this political tragedy, what will you do about it?
Right.
But Elizabeth Warren, who walked in to a polite reception, won over this room of 2,000 women of color because she was ready. She understood deeply not only what caused the problem, which was racism, or she called prejudice, and that the solution had to, her solution had to do deeply with rewarding hospitals that lowered the maternal death rates. And I think that was the beauty of that event, is elevating trans, migrant, the 16-year-old, all these groups of us. We have never really been part of the presidential landscape. We've been marginalized or forgotten, and putting us in a position of power. And we were able to, early in the cycle, present our issues to be seriously considered and responded to. So the candidates that were ready, they saw a bump in terms of how they were perceived and their trajectory, like Elizabeth Warren. I think her trajectory began that day.
I think that's right.
Others found a ceiling, who had trouble connecting with this room of black and brown women. And others seemed surprised by the basic question that we asked, which is, why should women of color support you?
Right.
The most important thing I want the progressive movement to understand is that women of color are the most progressive voters in the country, bar none. And we are 1 of 4 voters in the states that Trump won, and 1 of 5 voters overall. We are not a voting bloc to ignore, or to ignore at the detriment of any campaign. And if anything has proven that, it's been Biden's supposed leading place in the polls, and the fact he's falling right now. He acted like from day one that he didn't need women of color to win. His non-apology to Anita Hill, his mishandling of the revelations. He was kind of a creepy uncle with Lucy Flores, former state legislator out of Nevada. His continued, even to this moment where he's saying that he was attacked by Kamala Harris. These are women of color. And so because we're such an important part of the base, every Democrat who wants to be the president has to be able to address us and our issues with authentic and detailed plans. And that is new. That's new. I'm very proud of where we're at. We have more to do, though.
Well, congratulations on an absolutely stellar and stunning year. You are reshaping politics You are reshaping the Democratic Party. It is because of your passion and your vision that this is happening. So congratulations to you, thank you, and I hope that in so many ways the party and the progressive movement follows you, because that's the future.
We're the future.
We're the future. We're the future.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aimee. And thank you for joining us on FSTV.